To recap from the last video, I'm building a deck with what I'm calling a double picture frame design. The frame is constructed with cross members to support the back-to-front sections of decking that create the sides of the frame. The decking is going to go down something like this. A professional might have a better way to do this, but this worked well enough for me. Getting the frame square and the divider in the center is critical. Lay out the sides and the back of the frame. I'm checking the width at front and back of the two sections, as well as taking a diagonal measurement in both directions for each section. If the two sets of widths match, and the two diagonals match on each side, the frame is correctly aligned. I'm taking my time with this because a mistake here is going to create massive problems later. I'm limited to the precision of the tape measure, but it works well enough. So even after all the careful measuring, and cutting, and framing, and then measuring again, and then measuring a third time, the two framing pieces on either side of this section apparently were not perfectly parallel, as there was a subtle but ever-widening gap between the uniform length cross pieces and the center framing section. So it really comes down to this. John, how much of a perfectionist are you? So when I started this project, I placed that 5-gallon empty paint bucket underneath this funny little pipe here, which is the condensation from the air conditioner in the house. Because every time I walked through this general area of the yard, it was quite literally a swamp. Never before have I needed to put anything under this little guy, because the drip was so slow that it just didn't matter. Everything you see dripping out there, that's the humidity being pulled out of the air. But right now, that 5-gallon bucket fills up about once every 24 hours. Okay, not too bad. Not perfect, but not too given that I cut this board just based upon some measurements earlier, and quite frankly probably shouldn't have. It's actually not bad. See on this side, I had a little gap there, and unfortunately even a little gap kind of shows when you're doing 45s. On this side, you can see that. Pretty close. Again, not perfect, but I think I'm going to see if I can make it work, because I don't really want to recut this, because there is no span that is long enough to do remaining on the stack. The only place you could put it would be here, and it's too short to go there. And you're saying, but why would that be? Because hey, look, this, at its narrowest, is still the length or even slightly longer than this. And you would be right. And in theory, these two sections are exactly the same size. You'll note that in theory part. In the real world, I messed up. Because the reason this was cut earlier is because it's the twin of the board at the back there. And I cut the board at the back there a 1/2 inch too short. Meaning that this section over here measures 1 inch longer than this section over here. And that is also, in case anyone is wondering why these centerpieces don't quite line up with the supports underneath them. You see this edge here should actually be lining up with the inner edge here. And that is also why I just kind of had to compensate by screwing in a sort of a chunk of offcut 2x6 to this side, just to give me a little more meat to sink these screws here into. So I think we can make it work. On the other hand, maybe it'll fit? No, if we line it up there. Yep, that's what you'd run into. By the way, if you're ever building a deck like this and you're off by 1/2 inch, do the bigger side first. So you can see center back. And on these corners, if you remember, we put something to support the diagonals. Same thing over there. That's a hole. This side, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do on this side. That's a little bit too shallow.
for a 2x and a little bit too thick for one of the decking boards. May have to make a sandwich, but I need support kind of like that and like that. This was actually here to support this. Unfortunately, it's a little bit further in than it needs to be, and a lot of that is just because of this joist hanger here, and the post itself are kind of in the way. Good news though is that it supports this just fine. That hits the bottom half, that hits the top half, we're good. This one is the problem, because if you space it correctly, kind of goes like that. Like that. So it's not completely unsupported at the tip, but there ain't much there. So I don't think I need a piece of wood in this hole. I do need something here. I mean, that might hold, but this is right at the front of the deck. You're going to have a staircase right here in front of it. People are going to be stepping up and placing their weight right there. Yeah, you know what? If this were on the back side, I probably wouldn't mess with it, but that's a high enough traffic spot. I got to figure something out. Just something to go across there. All right. So there we go. Just like with the decking boards. And then it occurred to me, if I put a little screw right here in the corner where this is going to go, and left the head sticking up just slightly, ta-da, it supports the wood. A screw head is a direct structural member. Well, this is fun. This is a 5/4 by 6. It's 5.5 inches wide. This is a 5/4 by 6. It is 5.5 inches wide. I think you get the point. This is 5 3/4 inches wide. I don't know what this is. But when you're trying to make corners mate is a problem. That's what it is. I guess I can chop the ends off. and sneak it in as one of the decking boards. Which means I gotta waste one of my 10-footers just to do this 7-foot piece because this board is too wide.
So you're seeing me switch between a drill and a screw gun. To avoid splitting the wood, I'm using a countersink bit to drill a pilot hole for each screw. Using 2 drills is a lot faster than constantly switching bits back and forth, and countersinking the holes gives a nice finish.